Everybody, to the webinar EU Territorial Cooperation, Environmental Challenges and Enlargement. I'm Luisa Chiodi, Director of Osservatorio Balcani, Caucaso, Transeuropa, better known as OBCT for a shorter version. This webinar we organize together with CESPI, Center for Political Studies in Rome, and the researcher Raffaella Coletti of the Italian National Research Council in Rome again. This webinar intends to discuss the research we carried out together over the past year. And it's a research that is co-financed by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. The title of the research is The Contribution of Community of Practices to the European Integration of the Western Balkans. What we did is exploring the potential still of the European territorial cooperation in promoting transnational cooperation in the Adriatic and Ionian region, thanks to what we identified with the concept of community of practices. We'll have the chance to see more in detail what we mean by that, but generally speaking, it's in our understanding, to simplify it, is the group of practitioners that work to carry out interreg projects, and in this case, we discuss in the field of environmental protection. This webinar is also part of another project that we as OBCT carry out. This time is co-funded by the European Union, and it is called Cohesion for Climate. There, we as OBCT worked to cover with journalistic activity the EU cohesion policy in the Adriatic and Ionian region in particular. We publish on our website stories of people and projects and people engaged in the field of territorial cooperation, their achievement with concrete projects and addressing specifically climate change. This work of dissemination of what is this cohesion policy to a larger public stimulated us to consider what kind of role this project could have in supporting the enlargement process. While working to address urgent environmental challenges in the Adriatic Ionian regions, people are also somehow contributing or could be contributing to the enlargement process at large. Today, therefore, we wish to have a conversation around the findings of our research with you, experts, civil servants, activists, and try to understand to what extent the European integration process can be pushed forward by actors that are different from those that traditionally we examine, not only at the level of policy makers, but also at the level of civil society. Rarely practitioners, engineers, biologists, etc., are considered part of the actors that could make a difference in the field. So this is the topic we want to discuss. I'm glad to give the floor immediately for the opening remarks to the Secretary of Legation, Lorenzo Molin, of the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, that, as I mentioned, co-financed the research. Lorenzo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luisa. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for inviting me today to the presentation of a project that, as you mentioned, previously we funded last year. As you all know, the Balkans, Western Balkans, are a top priority for the government, for the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and this is the reason why we funded the project. We worked very well with OBCT and also with CESPI in the past, so it was easier for us to choose this project, which is we can say different from the others regarding the region, because at least since I'm here at the Policy Planning Unit, it's the first that I see regarding the community of practice, and we believe that it is essential to fund such projects, because it has a different approach in times in which disinformation and misinformation on the European Union, on European integration, and especially in that region, it is essential to construct to build the integration project from the bottom with a bottom-up approach. For many years, we heard that the decisions are taken in Brussels, that the integration starts there, but I believe that the integration and the enlargement starts in the field, directly in those regions. So I'm really looking forward to hear the findings of the project. I saw from the executive summary that, as usual, there are positive and negative aspects of the topic, but I believe that this project can help us delivering the result that we research. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. It is indeed an exploratory work. We will publish it very soon. We first want to open the conversation at large, and then by the end of the month, it will be available on our website and CESP website as well. I leave the floor this time to my colleague Serena Epis, that is one of the researchers who has been engaged in the research activity, who has the responsibility to present the main findings of our work. The floor is yours, Serena.
Thank you, Luisa. I'm sharing a presentation to present actually our research. I hope you can see it well. Can you? Okay, yeah. Great. Well, thank you, and good morning to everyone. As Luisa already mentioned, I'm going to present the preliminary findings of this research that is precisely called Communities of Practices in the Adriatic Ionian region, the untapped contribution to the EU integration of the Western Balkans. As Luisa has already mentioned, this research was basically carried out as part of a project financed by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and that we carried out in cooperation with the Center of Studies on International Politics. The objective of the research has already been mentioned as well, and it was indeed to explore the role of communities of practices that we intended as group of practitioners that work together at the transnational levels on Interreg projects, so projects financed by European territorial cooperation, and that also engage with political fora, for example, related to the Adriatic Ionian macro-region, so the EUSAIR thematic steering group, for example. And especially what we try to understand is how these communities of practices and if the work of these communities of practices can in a way contribute or further the integration process, the EU integration process of Western Balkan countries. I will just spend a few words to present the theoretical framework that we use, that we relied on for our research. This is the concept of communities of practices. That is a concept that has defined in sociological studies in many different ways. I just wanted to report here one of the definition of the concept of communities of practice that is basically, as I mentioned before, a group of people that share a common concern, a common interest or passion about a specific topic, and that are linked by some kind of relationships, and that's because of this kind of relationship, they can foster mutual learning and knowledge production on a specific field. In sociological studies, communities of practices have been also defined by identifying key elements that in a way characterize their work. And these key elements are, on one hand, a domain. So as I mentioned before, practitioners or people working on a community of practices share a common identity, common interests, with which come with also common competencies on specific fields. Of course, there is the element of community, because these practitioners are in a way united in some relationships, both professional and also personal relationships that in a way foster mutual learning. And of course, the final and core element is that of practices. So these practitioners really work together, engage together, develop experiences, share the experiences, tools and methodologies to practically engage on very concrete issues with the aim to find shared solution to shared or common problems or common, in a way, issues of interest. Just to keep going with the theoretical framework, just to say again that our assumption, that our starting point in a way for the research was that communities, that practitioners or people that engage in interreg projects or that engage at the political level with EUSAIR thematic steering groups, for example, form communities of practices in the Adriatic region, and that these practitioners, by producing this kind of shared knowledge and promoting this kind of know-how exchanges, they strengthen in a way or promote and foster the links, transnational and cross-border links in the macro region that in turn can benefit the integration process of the Western Balkans. Our research was guided by a set of research questions that we tried to answer. And these research questions basically addressed different issues that we wanted to explore. For example, first of all, whether we can talk about communities of practices in the Adriatic Union and if they can contribute from the bottom up to the integration process, and also if they are able to produce in a way a scaling up of pilot project outcome, for example, to policy measures and initiatives. Just an important remark is that, of course, from a methodological point of view, of course, we started with a literature review. We proceeded with a stakeholder mapping to identify key actors that we wanted to interview with qualitative interviews, and then we proceeded with the analysis. An important remark is that we focus, especially as Luisa already mentioned, on the environmental sectors, on environmental protection, because environment comes out as a sector where this kind of transnational bonds, transnational cooperations, in a way, rise almost naturally, because precisely because of the, in a way, transnational nature of environmental challenges, being that marine pollution, climate actions, or biodiversity protection, because these are challenges that basically do not know any political border. There is a shared awareness about practitioners and stakeholders in the region that there is a need for transnational and cross-border perspectives when addressing this kind of issues. So this is why we specifically decided to focus on this specific sector of environment in a wider sense. So as I mentioned before, ranging from marine pollution, which is key in the Adriatic Union region, of course, and also climate action, biodiversity protection, even also sustainable tourism, etc. So that's just to say that that was our key thematic focus in a way. Now to the core of this research, I'd like to present some preliminary findings. Well, the first one that I'd like to mention is that, in a way, our interviews, our research confirmed the first part, at least, of our assumption, so that in the Adriatic Union, there are communities of practices that are made up of practitioners, being them professionals, experts, scholars, technicians, that engage on very specific issues, such as the environment. Here again, I just wanted to report here some relevant quotes that we collected during our interviews to give evidence of the findings. And in the words of one of the stakeholders that we interview, it is clear that, again, environmental challenges are a particular relevant topic or sector, precisely because, as I mentioned before, they transcend political boundaries. And in specific fields that are particularly relevant for the Adriatic Ionian macro region, such as fisheries, for example, our stakeholders highlighted how there is this need for rigorous scientific data that, in a way, needs to inform evidence-based policy. So the first finding is that precisely this kind of communities of practices do exist in the Adriatic Ionian region. They are created around very concrete issues and topics. And there is this kind of sense of belonging of participants to these kind of communities of practices. They feel that they are part, I mean, according at least to the experiences that we collected with the interviews, there is this sort of sense of belonging to a community that in a way promotes professional but also personal ties that can be in a way sustainable also and long-lasting and that can go beyond the project, the specific project cycle in a way. And what is interesting to notice here, and one of the findings that it is interesting for us, is that the fact that these communities of practices in a way unite stakeholders from countries that are already members of the European Union and countries that are candidates to join the European Union, well, practitioners do not really feel the difference in these senses. So being or not being citizens of a country that is part or not of the European Union is not perceived as a challenge or an obstacle for the emergence or the cooperation of the cooperation in these kind of communities of practices. So in a way, the fact that there is this kind of difference between member states and candidate countries is also perceived actually as an added value, something that in a way enriches the collaboration instead of in a way hindering it. Well, the second finding is that while we do have these communities of practices, and of course there are different factors that influence the emergence or also help the emergence of these communities of practices, the key factor that promotes collaboration remains the availability of funds. In the words again of one of our interlocutors, cooperation could basically happen because there are funds available that make this kind of collaboration in a way possible. So the possibility to work together on projects financed by Interreg programs, for example, really opens opportunities for practitioners to engage at the cross-border and transnational levels. And they feel that they can benefit from this kind of cooperation because they can acquire competencies through capacity building, for example. They benefit from mutual learning. And especially what is important considering the region that we are focusing on, this kind of cross-border transnational project on very specific issues, again, for example, on environmental protection, can foster trust building among countries and also reconciliation among the countries in a region that is somehow still experiencing political tension. So there is also this kind of political potentiality of this cooperation at the transnational cross-border level. Interestingly, one remark that we collected from several stakeholders is that funds, while they are the key driver for cooperation, they are mostly perceived as insufficient. So with the funds available, stakeholders can work on pilot projects, but they are rarely able to move on from the pilot stage. So practitioners tend to recognize that already with the funds available, territorial cooperation can make a change. But here again, in the words of one of our interviewees, if Interreg would have 10 times more budget, then it would do miracles. So again, it really recognizes the key role of the fundings and of programs such as the Interreg that they can have in the development of the region and connection in the region. The third finding, which is a core one for us, is that while practitioners working in communities of practices do recognize that they need to engage also with decision makers if the ultimate aim of collaboration is to, in a way, find common solutions to concrete problems. Yet, what they perceive is that they do not have easy access, in a way, to the policy level, so to policymakers. Of course, there are different reasons that they mention for these difficulties in working with decision makers. Yet, of course, the key findings for us is that regardless of the various reasons that explain this kind of difficulties, the key point here is that the problem when there is this lack of political spillovers from project to policy making is that the outcomes of projects that are funded by Interregs mostly very rarely translate into policy reform or strategic decisions. So again, as I mentioned before, they tend to remain at the very stage of pilot project and not being able to, in a way, do this kind of political spillover and influence the strategic decision at the political level. This finding is directly connected to the second part of our assumption, so on how communities of practices can influence also the EU integration process. Precisely because of this kind of lack of connection or not easy access to decision-making fora, there is also a limited connection with the EU integration process. Again, here there are many reasons that, in a way, explain why there is not this direct link with the work of communities of practice on very hands-on projects and the general framework and the general objective of EU integration. What is important for us is that one perception that we have collected from many stakeholders is that first, enlargement is not really the core of their action, but not even in their general framework of the action. So many stakeholders, again, for example, in the environmental sector, do mention EU norms and standards. For example, when it comes to environmental protection, many stakeholders have I've noted that they work on the European Green Deal norms, on the Paris Agreement, the Habitat Directive. So they have these knowledge and they have this idea of working to adopt these standards or to align at least to European norms. Yet they do not perceive that their practical work on these norms is somehow connected to a political process, and that in a way to the general enlargement process. There is this kind of, again, lack of connection from the very practical level to the more political level. Finally, the final finding, or the final remark we could call it, is that communities of practices actually represent an underexploited resource for the European integration from below in the Adriatic-Ionian Union. There is a potential that these communities of practices have a potential to play a role in complementing the political level of the enlargement process, especially by bringing into the discussion the needs of the territories involved. Yet their potentiality, their role is still underexploited and somehow under-recognized by political actors. Finally, what is interesting for us is also that many stakeholders have expressed this consideration that Italy is in a privileged position, if we can call it like that. It can be an important interlocutor that can, in a way, play a very strong role in fostering these kind of connections in the Adriatic-Ionian region, and especially in connecting transnational cooperation based on Interreg and EUSAIR political fora with the broader European enlargement process of the Western Balkans. So Italy is actually perceived as an actor that can make a difference in the region, again, in the words of one of our interviewees. Finally, in our research, we would also like to propose a set of recommendations. We have started to draft some, but we would like also to gather some other inputs, hopefully by the discussion today. Some recommendation, of course, start from the suggestion that the role of practitioners should be valorized and recognized, and their knowledge should be embedded in political processes to, in a way, promote this kind of evidence-based policymaking. There is a clear need to ensure the scaling up of project outcomes from pilot initiative to concrete policy measures. And also we think that the EUSAIR thematic steering group as transnational spaces for connections can play a role in fostering the dialogue between practitioners and policymakers. And in this sense, their role precisely as a transnational political dialogue forum should be enhanced. And finally, as we've seen that the funding are in a way the drivers of cooperation, we believe that there is also a need to ensure adequate and increased funding both for Interreg programs to guarantee the sustainability of innovative initiative and to avoid the fact that most of the time project outcomes basically remain limited to the framework of a very specific project. And of course, to do this, again, fundings and the availability of adequate fundings is a prerequisite and something that cannot be avoided in a way. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I took a lot of time to present this, but I'm very happy to join the discussion and to see also and to listen also to the contribution of two of the stakeholders that we actually involved in the research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serena. I think you pointed to the most important aspects. What I would like to add is that among other things that you mentioned, for instance, is this effort many of the practitioners in the field suggest when you say they strongly advise the use of, to carry out evidence-based policies. Researchers collect them, the evidence or data that policy makers should use. Probably there are many linkages that are missing. Among them, there is certainly public debates in the media that are important to be done. So telling the stories of this data collected and the needs that the Interreg project highlights should be more often debated in the media. So in this sense, it is important, the effort to do the dissemination of cohesion policies and in particular Interreg policies that the European Commission is supporting. And I think this is really not to be underestimated. And in general, I think the main issue that we constantly find when studying these kind of initiatives is that what is missing is a driver, someone that is really putting the puzzle together. Someone that, because there is such a big amount of actors doing tiny little projects, but also many big actors with a lot of resources available or a lot of decision-making potentials in the field, what is missing is this connection between these actors and the coordination and also the driving, so that things can be pushed ahead. So now I wish to ask one of our guests, and in particular, Senad Oprašić of the EUSAIR Pillar 3, who is a coordinator of this Pillar 3 on environmental issues. Exactly how and to what extent the TSGs of the EUSAIR, these coordinators, can play this role of drivers, this role of connecting the dots or making the puzzle possible, because it's clear that there are many initiatives in the field, and they are all very scattered in very many different aspects. So can EUSAIR become this platform for a substantive dialogue between this community of practices and the decision makers at political level with some kind of impact in terms of enlargement perspective? Senad Oprašić, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luisa. Thank you, Serena, for excellent presentation, and thank you for organizing this webinar. I am actually prepared some presentation to explain what are we doing during in our implementation process of EUSAIR strategy in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Western Balkan countries, and of course in all Adriatic Ionian region. And so I will probably skip some of the slides, but I will start with the first slide. Actually, it was the main challenge for the world and for the European Union was biodiversity, and European Union prepared biodiversity strategy 2013. And so, the task was that we at least 30% of EU land has to be protected. Also, 10% of marine area has to be strictly protected. And also, you see what is the key issue: biodiversity laws. Also, connection between biodiversity laws, restoring biodiversity, core part of recovery, and also Natura 2000 protect 30% of the land, in particular the sea. And EU has the clear task, but Western Balkan and the other non-EU country in EUSAIR try to catch it. Next slide, please. Main challenges are also important with the ICZM, Integral Coastal Zone Management and Marine Special Planning, which is really important in the process in the connection with all of these issues which are mentioned here, from the from the drinking water to the health and the inside industry, tourism, and everything what is important, and everything what you can find this in this link in the slide. Put it in the slide. Next slide, please. In our activities, in which are included 10 EU and non-EU countries, we define green and blue corridor in marine special planning, and the green and blue corridors you can see. Blue corridor in the Adriatic Sea, and also in a green corridor, which are connected with the species in the blue, of course, and in the land, in terrestrial habitats. And also you can see on the third, the smallest map, you can see actually the connection track, and also proposed marine protected areas, which are blue. The yellow are the connecting tracks. And so, next slide, please. Green and blue corridors are included. Try to include, and actually we include in these activities river basin management, for example, Sava river basin, Mura Drava river system, and as part of the European Green Belt, and also more space for water functioning in UNESCO in the field of water management. And also we include ICPDR, Danube Conventional, and at the last meeting, it was organized in 15th of September in last Monday. In this Monday, actually this week, I participate in that. Participate in that, and we organize actually workshops, panel discussion, and the other all day was with the title From Source to Sea. And the key issue was key addressing was done by UNEP MAP coordinator, Ms. Tatiana Hema, from the ICPDR, actually secretary, Ms. Birgit Vogel, and also Irena Makarenko from Black Sea Commission participate in that. There was also a lot of scientists, a lot of NGOs. They spoke about the problems in the sea and, of course, in the terrestrial part of this Adriatic Ionian region. Next slide, please. Actually, in our work, we prepare, and it is in process of implementation, these 4 flagship projects: ICZM MSP, 3M Marine Monitoring Management and Marine Protected Species, and also Pet Hub Eco, actually, which is protection and enhancement of natural terrestrial habitats and ecosystem, and also large-scale pollution contingency plan. abbreviation is actually ASOSCOP. Next slide, please. Also, in the preparation, we have the other project like botanical garden as biodiversity shelters and nurseries, removal of the adaptation of coppice forests in the drastically changing environment, also secure the diversity through holistic approach for the most treated Mediterranean conifer ecosystems. And what is important, one of that acronym is COSFI-MARE toward the long-term in situ conservation, sustainable fisheries, and improving the marine environments in the Adriatic region is actually drafted, developed, and proposed for the funding into Interreg Adrian, and so we are expected that at the end of the year they will inform us actually, since that all member of TSG3 environmental quality is actually accepted this project as very important, and now it is in process for find some sources actually for funding from Interreg Adrian. Next slide, please. Next, the framework of the projects actually is of the project. I would like to say that is the ICCM MSP project, actually environmental sustainability according to MSFD. Marine Strategy Framework Directive, Water Framework Directive, other directive, transboundary and cross-border ICPM, MSP. ICCM and MSP, also both marine and coastal perspective, considered the opportunity to connect the river basin management and ICCM and MSP, and also we are preparing some other project in which we will, with ICCM and MSP, connected actually river basin management, which is really important for the green corridors. Also, climate change mitigation and adaptations are considered in the projects, and capitalization of previous project experience, like the projects we had, Porto di Mare, Supreme, and the other. Next slide, please. That first project, which are mentioned in the list of four of these four flagship projects, is actually the four work plans: project management, establishing shared knowledge platforms, capitalization mechanism, and identification of knowledge gaps, also implementation and communication. This is something what we are actually discussing in work plan 2 and work plan 3 and 4. Actually, this is the regional scale, sub-regional scale, and also pilot cases. The same is for all of the timing, considering the progress of national MSP process and the extending change of framework condition, the project activity will need to be adjusted in the moment of implementation and to be adapted to the new conditions. Everything is happening in this process, in this activity, special like activities, like some catastrophic and dangerous situation, like flooding, like landslides, like forest fire, and the other. And this is important that we adjust our project activities concerning to that situations. Next slide, please. Actually, I explained a little bit about the frame, the work plan. To establishing shared knowledge platform, actually, we need to consolidate and exclusively use the geoportal of Adriatic Ionia region, recently developed under the Porto di Mare project that was happened in the previous. Also refine, adapt, and further operationalization the available tools to access vulnerability and carrying capacity of coastal and marine ecosystems, and so on. So next slide. In this pictures, you can see cumulative effect assessment. The module implements cumulative effect assessment and anthropogenic activities on marine environmental components, also ecosystem approach-based marine vulnerability assessment. It has applied in Boka Kotorska Bay, Montenegro, and this is the map of this activity, so we have no time to explain. We see the next slide. Can you hear me? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, you have 2 more minutes if you can, yeah?
Yeah, okay. Capitalization, work plan 3 is capitalization mechanism and identification of knowledge gap. Actually, we activate the knowledge brokerage services to run the entire duration of the project to ensure a capitalization of existing knowledge, practices, and experience available in the Ionian region and beyond. This is important, this beyond, since that we are very active in TSG3, environmental quality, and the other also pillars are very active. There are 4 or 5 pillars in this process. Many countries express its interest to join us. For example, Cyprus, which don't belongs to the Adriatic Ionian region, but it has to be connected with somebody, and so this is actually great opportunity to join us. And so on the next governing board, we will discuss about access of Cyprus in this process. So for this knowledge brokerage, it's easy access to results from projects and research, promotion of innovative and successful practice of blue and green corridor concept, multi-level governance best practices, and the other. Also organize discussion about specific environmental monitoring and investigation needs, and the regional and sub-regional level having a transboundary component, and agree on joint actions, and also update and complement of assessment of environmental status and maritime activities in the Adriatic Ionian region, so-called initial assessment prepared under the Supreme Project by including the status of non-EU countries in the Adriatic Ionian region. Next slide, please. Work plan for implementation macro-regional at the macro-regional, sub-regional level, and so this is something that you can read later, and when you use this presentation for your scope. And next slide, please. In this work plan 4, it's important that we mention that we decide about the 4 pilot cases, and we will work in the Gulf of Trieste, also in the Central Adriatic, North Adriatic Gulf of Trieste, Central Adriatic Promo Jabuka Pit, also in South Adriatic Bay of Neum Klek Bay of Mali, Stone, and Neretva Delta, and also on the Adriatic Ionian boundary. Actually, this is a Otranto channel, which is important that we apply ICCM and MSP in that area. So next slide, please. And the communication, focus on communication is the sector stakeholders, both private, public, administration, policymakers, schools, academia, and so develop communications tools in initiative aiming at highlight concrete benefit of MSP and ICCN for local communities, job creation, better quality of the environment, ensure the third was ensure involvement of young generation in the discussion about MSP and in promotion of best practices. Actually, we established young council and the representative of young people participate at the meetings, and they had take its role and participate in the Isola tent of Mediterranean coast. And also, they have very active and they have a good energy, good knowledge and wishes to participate. And I hardly wait to change, to replace us in our processes. So use EUSAIR platform developed by Regione Marsh in the facility point project and disseminate the knowledge brokerage services of MSP ICZM to the large stakeholder community and the public. Next slide, please.
Almost done, right?
I hope I will do it. And also the third project flagship is actually ESSCOP Adriatic Ionia Regional Contingency Plan for the emergency oil spill in the Adriatic Sea, which is really important issue. From time to time we have the situation that oil spills happened in our Adriatic Sea, and we need to actually develop to prepare strategy and action plan for the Adriatic Ionian region. And also we have to have some joint training scheme and the other activities which are important. This is the so-called pamphlet of this project, ASOSCOP. This is project is ongoing, and they are in connection with, next slide please, with some project that we call North Adriatic Maritime Incident Response System, actually NAMIRIS project. We start with that in 2003, and now it's ongoing activities and trying to connect and include in some our activities that will happen in the other part of the Adriatic Sea. So next slide, please. Actually, ASOSCOP and the NAMIRIS project has in work plan oil spill contingency plan and some pilot activities, oil spill and other polluting potential trees contingency plan, microplastic, gene pollution, and the other table. Top exercise training and relevant services and equipment. We are really a lack of equipment, and we have to be prepared to react very fast, and so to have a good response on such situation. So in that situation we need coaching, training, knowledge, also skills, learn experience and development of our activities to succeed in this field of work. Next slide, please. Some of activities we are organizing many activities, and also we are preparing and publishing some guidelines, handbooks, and the other materials which are very important for the Adriatic Ionian Sea. And one of that is a handbook for green infrastructure and special planning, which is really actually good for somebody who wants to discuss about it. There is a link you can find that handbook and use it for it. The excellent actually presentation of Slovenian coast area in which they connected all actually dislocated the way, some kind of way, not way, but yeah, the way close to the Adriatic Sea, and they put it aside, the towns, and increase the green area and increase the green process of percentage of green infrastructure in the area after they allocated the way from the Adriatic Sea beyond the area. Next slide, please.
Senad, we have to close because otherwise the time
This is the last slide.
Okay.
This is instead of the conclusions, we organize workshop, panel sessions, roundtables, and different topics: climate change, circular economy, sustainability, everything what is important in that time. Good environmental status of the sea, biodiversity, macroplastic waste management. Ensure the aim is to try to actually ensure adequate and increase funding for Interreg and IPA Adrian programs, include various stakeholders, create synergies between, I mentioned before, Barcelona Convention, ICP, PDR, Black Sea Commission, other international forums and conventions, work on print publication guidelines, scientific papers. You see the handbook, also strengthening a link between EU enlargement objectives and cooperation frameworks like Interreg and EUSAIR, and try to support project proposals. And most important, last but not least important, include youngest in our work. So thank you very much for your patience, and if you have any questions, I will try to explain. There is a lot of activities we are working, and we have facility points. They support us in this process, and so we are ready to work more and hard. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Senad. Let me just summarize a couple of things, including the fact that there is a long work behind us that you have already done, including the identification of the flagship things that we want to do together, the involvement of scientists, NGOs that in different fora apparently are listened by you, and where a dialogue exists. You identify the need of capitalizing on achievement, which is also a very important aspect, and highlights the achievement that were obtained so far. Indeed,
this is part of highlights of achievements, just part of it. There is a lot of other better, but there is no time to.
Yeah, indeed. Among the aspects we also came across with, there was this Otranto channel, marine protected area, which should follow the very good example of the Pomo protected area that was a very good example of the past. Somehow what I understood from our interviews is also the need that, every single achievement, has a long process, is complex, is difficult to be done, but should be understood. And somehow also there is a need for drivers to make things go ahead. I mean, this is, I think, a very important aspect that we also identified, because the links of to-dos is very long, and resources are scarce, although the Western Balkans and the macro regions in general have more resources than many other regions of the world. Nonetheless, the resources are scarce as compared to the needs for the environment. Therefore, it is very important that the responsibility, there are drivers that take things to the end and achieve the results that we would like to see obtained. The hope for the youth is always there, but they are not. We cannot consider them the most responsible ones, but rather those to whom we should hand in mechanisms that really work. So somehow I want now to give the floor to Anna Nikolov, who works for the Association of the European Border Regions, who has long experience as well in the field, and somehow can give us the answer to what are the main advantages of this cross-border cooperation in bringing the Adriatic and Ionian region ahead in the European integration. And yourself as practitioner, to what extent you assess the role of your category as one that can play a role in this EU accession process, at least in different fields, specifically in this case in the environmental. Anna, the few minutes ahead are yours.
Thank you. I will be very brief and to the point because of the lack of the time. Anyway, what I would like to stress, and what we always neglect, it's like the territory actually that border regions covered. if we count just 50 kilometers from the borders, for the whole Europe, it's more than 40% of the territory and 30% of the population. But if we count only the Western Balkans countries, that percentage is even much bigger. And if you count the cross-border programs, then it's going up to 80-90%, and certain countries are fully covered by the cross-border programs. So the influence that cross-border cooperation can have on the territory of the countries are kind of huge, but often not visible enough. So this is why I always want to stress this. The second part, when you implement the cross-border projects, you often account the certain obstacles. In some cases, it could be resolved during the project, but many times are legal or administrative one that really needs the influence from the national level, especially when we talk about the Balkans, which are mostly centralized country. If you want to solve anything on the border level, you definitely need the cooperation from the national level. And for that point, there is the B Solution initiative initiated by the DG Regio, managed by the ABR, which is open for inland borders and also maritime borders, and includes EU internal borders and external borders, which in this case covered the most of the borders also of Adriatic Canyon. And this can be used for many obstacles that you face when it comes to the cross-border environmental protection, reaction in the emergency situation, related to the waste management, which is also really, if it goes across the border, for the waste, even in the EU, there is a lot of issues. What the B solutions can actually bring to the table is detecting the exact problem in exact legal framework from the both countries, where needs to be made the change in order to enable this kind of cooperation, make it easy. So it's the tool that really needs to be used more, and it's really nice that Italy is really into the cooperation into the Balkans, and actually can, let's say, motivate other EU countries to also support the EU integration process by using this tool. Because when you need to fix certain things related to the environment, or let's say if it's a certification across the border, whatever do you need, like managing the cross-border protected areas, you do need to change the laws, and you influence not just the border area to be more integrated between themselves, but also two countries between themselves. So by doing it, so you actually influencing hugely the EU integration process. And what is really important, that the EPA countries now have really the opportunity, by using the B solutions, to be more integrated when the process is done than certain EU borders. So I really encourage all to use this tool as much as possible, because it's really there, and it's really open, and it's on a rolling basis. So it's not that there is a deadline, so you can apply with the problem. So if you have the obstacles, there is the team that will help you with the experts to tackle this specific problem. So this is what I would like to stress. And well, when we talk about youth, well, we have the Interreg Voluntary Youth, also the DG Regio initiative, that allows all the projects and programs to host the IB volunteers. That they cannot fix the let's say the obstacles that we have, but they can also help us communicate it in a way that practitioners and the people can understand, but also make the visibilities what the border regions, the local and regional authorities, and also the national authorities are doing. So and make it visible for the larger audience, which politicians of course like. So it's it's really actually added value for the cross-border cooperation. Well, the time is up, so I will stop here. I can talk about this for like a really long time, but if you have additional questions, I'm here.
Thank you very much, Anna, also for keeping the time. And it's really important to understand how at the borders between different countries, the problems are particularly visible, but they can also bring a very positive change for everyone else at the national or across, European level. So they are really very sensitive places that we should look at. And also there is more likely that the professional engaged in the field have a very strong sense of what should be done in concrete terms. So if anyone has questions to raise, sorry about that. This is a strange tradition we have in Trentino, which is I'm afraid you can hear it. It lasts 40 seconds. And I don't want to make comments, but anyway, it's a strange tradition to have at noon this sound that is overwhelming, but it has nothing to do with war, luckily. So if anyone in the room has any question to raise, I'd be happy to give you the floor. If any of the participants on the side of our speakers instead want to make an additional comment, is also possible too, very briefly. Otherwise, I'm now going to thank you so much for your participation, inform you that we'll be very soon publishing our work in full length, and hopefully the important aspect that were raised, starting from the need for synergies in different among different actors, giving those working on concrete issues a particular space, is going to be taken more seriously than in the past, let's say. As for youth, you're right, Anna, indeed they have more sensitivity towards communication, but what it is important is they also raise issues so that these issues are become the object of debate, and rather than simply communicate, we take things seriously in terms of addressing them, because they are far from being solved. But hopefully the enlargement process is no longer as tired as it used to be, and we're going to accelerate in the next few years. So thank you everybody for being here, and hopefully let's work together soon again.